Welcome, good people around the world, to the Moment of Truth show. From underground bases to strange forbidden places, with your host, Paul Wesley, aka Prince Truthchaser, where resistance is necessary and love is always key. Sharing what the government doesn't want you to know. Reaching vibrational levels that most dare to go. From tyranny to FEMA camps to UFO and alien abductions. Is it a race against time with their negative seduction? Will humanity rise to resist this power, taking away our rights hour by hour? Nothing is certain of what's going to be, only that it's up between me and you, and love will be key. Okay, let's put this here like this. Okay, everybody, I have a special guest today. This is Joseph Morlone from Philadelphia. Joseph is an activist, he is a journalist, and he's passionate about change. Joseph, how are you, sir?
I'm well.
That's good to hear. I really want to first off go ahead and I have to ask you, what got you into activism? What made you really want to change things?
Well, as far as activism and want to change things, that's something that happened years after I'd already woken up. Because after I had that, quote unquote awakening, I went into a deep depression and felt like there's nothing we can do about this. Most humans are stupid, and if they want to kill billions of people, well, maybe they deserve it. And I sort of went into an introverted, isolated state where I didn't care. I just let the apathy envelop me. And after a couple of years of that, something sort of sparked me through a series of very strange synchronicities and even, if I can go as far to say, mystical experiences where I felt compelled to fight evil. That I would fight evil in all its forms, and I would not just devote myself to that, but become literally willing to die for that. And I think that when you have something worth dying for, it makes your life worth living.
Well put. I mean, I think that's one of the keys that are missing nowadays in a lot of people that, they want to make change, but they're a little scared. They don't have that push.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think it's going to come to a point where people are really going to have to make big sacrifices. The type of sacrifices that, Thoreau did, or the original followers of Jesus, where it was literally boycotting society. I mean, now everybody gets paid with direct deposit. They don't even see what's being robbed from them. They work hard and they think they're making X amount of dollars an hour, and then when it comes down to it, they're making like half that. And at some point, people are going to have to stand up and say, no, I'm not paying these taxes to fund wars, to fund a fake healthcare program, government waste, and support organizations that they're out there exchanging guns for cocaine and shipping in opium from Afghanistan. And, the only way to stand up to that, I mean, if everybody, even if 10 or 15% of the American population just refused to pay their taxes, do you know what kind of effect that would have on things? It would be exponential.
Well, now I remember talking to you before at the protest, about, you were saying how the police officers are all in on the drug dealing, and the government's all in, and the war is basically, especially in Afghanistan, was because of the opium plantations going on. Is that true? What do you think about that?
Oh, that's not what I think. That's empirical. I mean, first of all, and it runs right from the top in Afghanistan, all the way, trickles all the way down to 9th and Somerset, and before 2002, only 20% of the heroin supply in the United States originated in Afghanistan, and now it's like almost 80% of our heroin supply comes from Afghanistan. Just in the past year alone, I think I've read in the Inquirer and the Daily News that there's been at least a dozen police officers that have been caught either shaking down drug dealers to steal their drugs to resell, or raiding the evidence locker to sell those drugs to other drug dealers. And then there's the whole issue in Mexico, where our government is fighting drug cartels that aren't cooperative with them to allow certain drug cartels to get away with smuggling drugs into this country. And that was the whole thing with Fast and Furious, when they were trying to sell the United States is trying to sell guns to Mexico, and when they tried to pay cash, we're told, oh, well, the money will be too difficult to launder. Can you pay us in cocaine? I mean, that's absurd that our government would take cocaine as payment for guns that they're not even allowed to sell to Mexican drug cartels.
Well, not only that, they're trying to take our guns. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. At the same time, yeah, they're saying that we don't have the right to own guns. I've never even shot a gun at somebody. I've never done anything wrong with a gun. And hope and pray I would never have to use it. But there's the people out there that are doing things wrong with guns. They're the ones that the government is letting do it. But the government wants to take my right to own a gun away? I mean, it's ridiculous.
And then we have the NSA spying on us. I mean, it kind of seems like chaos and tyrannical government is pretty much taken over. But I mean, what do we do? I mean, what's going to change things, in your opinion?
It's scary because the whole of American society is under hypnosis, a complete hypnosis. It's exactly like, I remember hearing how George Orwell and Huxley would debate whether the future would turn into like a 1984 or a Brave New World, and we're seeing that it's sort of like a coupling of both. And right now, you have a mind control of dumbing down where it's, the TV and our public education system, which, I mean, that would take hours just to discuss the flaws in that, but it's basically, public education is a form of mind control to keep people stupid, to forbid critical thinking. They don't teach rhetoric, they don't teach philosophy, they don't teach debate. All they teach is that if you're obedient and you show up on time, you get good grades, and the dumber you are, the easier it is to get good grades. And then there's the pharmacological aspect of mind control, where, there's the whole Zoloft, Xanax, revolution of zombieism. And, then there's the food that we're eating, the crap they're spraying in the sky. And I don't think any of these things are because a conspiracy is when two or more people commit a premeditated crime. And the weaponization of that term conspiracy theory stretches from J. Edgar Hoover's denial of the mafia all the way to the JFK assassination, and in that like 40-year period, by the time we had hit the mid to late 60s, the term conspiracy theory had become a pejorative. But I mean, before that, if you were to go back 100 years and say that somebody was a conspiracy theorist, nobody would think of that as a insult or a slur. I mean, these are words you can look up in the dictionary. And half this stuff isn't even theory anymore. I mean, we know what they're doing. We know they're poisoning the water. We know that food that, stuff like ramen noodles, which you can buy for 15 cents at a bodega, has like plastic in it. It's that stuff that's completely undigestible. I mean,
I know it's weird because it goes back to the people who really spoke up in the early 90s, even earlier than that, and that bluntly and blatantly said they want to kill off 90% of the population because the ruling elitist, what they want to do is they want to have just a couple 100,000 slaves that pretty much are obedient and listen to what they want. And because there's so many of us, because there's over 7 billion of us, they just want to give us vaccines and we're not talking negative for the viewers that are going to hear this. We're not trying to lower vibration. We're collectively using our minds to think outside of what people say is normal and really educate others to that if you do enough research and empower yourself, that it's there. I mean, when I look at no, go ahead, Joe.
I think it's good that one of the first things you would ask is what's the solution, because and this is one of their tactics that they use against us is to create this fervor of just talking about all these problems and get people, and that's exactly what happened to me when I first started realizing this stuff was true and going on. I became so bogged down with the negativity that I actually would have been somebody that was an asset to them had I had the resources to. I would have agreed with everything that Bill Gates and all these scumbags, the Big New Brzezinski. I was at a point where I would have helped them, because I had such disdain for the stupidity of what I saw around me. But the solution is it's a psycho-spiritual solution that the weapons, we have to use weapons that they're not capable of. And see, most of the people running the show are suffering from a sociopathic sort of spiritual disease. And yes, they have bombs and guns, and they control the internet, and they control our public education, but they're incapable of empathy, and they're incapable of courage, they're incapable of love. And when they see people do courageous things, if it's somebody running into a burning building and jumping out a window with a baby in their hand, they look at that and they think it's so disgusting. It fills them with hate. And when they see love and empathy, they're so confused by it because they can't understand why we're capable of those emotions. And that's the root of why they want to get rid of that. If the first thing is if they can just get rid of empathy, love, courage, maybe maybe they could get rid of that through some type of pharmacological lobotomy or mind control. And they seem to be making some small inroads on that. But, God forbid if that doesn't work, they'll just take us out.
They'll just kill us off, right? And it kind of makes me think, and, it's kind of hard enough for people to swallow water, air, food, everything's being poisoned. But when we go back in time, when we go back in ancient time, it kind of makes, like, you're saying that they lack all these traits. I mean, are these individuals human at all? That's what I'm kind of pushing towards, because I'm a firm believer of self-empowerment and love vibration, just like you, brother. But these people lack these emotions. Now, whether that's a chemical and whether that's a neurological issue or if the case comes up, are they human beings?
You know what? This is the thing. Empathy is something you can see empathy in babies as young as 10 to 18 months old. So this would lead me to believe that empathy is not a learned behavior. It's something that, we're instilled with. Now, obviously, somebody that's a sociopath, they don't express empathy. And there are people that would be considered sociopaths because maybe they were sadistically abused as children or whatever, and that's different. But see, if you want to go deep down the rabbit hole, what I think it is that our existence, we're sort of like in a spiritual boot camp, and our real consciousness does not exist in our bodies. Just like, C.S. Lewis said, we don't have a soul, we are a soul. And that soul or consciousness is not here. It is in, like, the real world. And the consciousness it is broadcast through our pineal gland to operate in this realm. Okay? Well, there are dark entities that have hacked that program. So they have created a way to divert the process in which the consciousness embeds itself into a human body, and those people are sort of darkly working undercover. And another trademark of a sociopath is they are masters at creating fake empathy, fake love, fake humor, and appearing as though they're human when they're not. So they may be, in a sense, biologically human, and they may not be completely biologically human, but they're definitely not spiritually human. That I'm sure of. And I've seen it with people. There's a guy, Thomas Sheridan, who's an expert at sociopathy, and his stuff is really enlightening. And he says that these people are so dangerous that to even confront them about their sociopathy can be, like, devastating. He knew somebody that confronted a coworker about it, and a week later they found child porn on the guy's computer. And that's something that if that were to happen to somebody, my God, I mean, even if you were able to vindicate yourself, your reputation is just totally shot. These people do not care. They would sell their own grandmother, for a few dollars if that's what they needed. I heard a story once about a guy who was a sociopath that was about to be executed. He was a compulsive thief in addition to all the other, horrific crimes he committed, but he was a non-smoker. And as they were putting him in the electric chair, he stole a pack of cigarettes cigarettes from one of the guards that was strapping him in. And this just goes to show you, first of all, the guy's going to be dead in 10 minutes, doesn't even smoke, so why would he steal a pack of cigarettes? It's just the idea of, like, instead of being concerned with death, he's just enraptured by the fact that he can do one last evil thing.
And we go on about this reality being a school for the soul, if you want to call it. And I think that when we look at the so-called problems of the world, the sociopaths, psychopaths, the evil people, the elitists, we get overwhelmed, especially if you're new in the game and in the information. And we say to ourselves, well, this is really overwhelming. But I think that when we figure out that, I myself believe that we don't die, we carry on to another existence. But, like, I believe that it's like a boot camp. It's so I think that, like I said earlier, well, what can we do? What are the solutions? And you say, well, we're all going to die if it comes down to that with these psychopaths. Even if that does happen, I think that what we do on an individual level in this reality, is a boot camp for the soul. It's what I'm doing, what you do, and what everyone else does. It's like a ripple effect in this reality, in this existence. So, what do you think? Do you think that that this is a soul boot camp? Basically, our choices are vital, whether it be good or bad.
Yes, I know it is. One example I can give is that I kept having really strange synchronicities that revolved around this one specific person who I had bumped into, and he's somebody that's like the kind of person that just radiates love and, spiritual goodness, and I'd always bump into him in my neighborhood, and I didn't see him for a while, and I was on the L, and just out of nowhere I started thinking about him, and right after that, I go to the next stop, and his brother got on the L, and I asked about him, and he said, oh, he changed his number, and he gave me his new number. So him and I, we had this, like, shared mystical experience one day when we were sitting on his roof and watching the sunset and just talking about all kinds of stuff. And I had this vision that I was living in a timeline that I wasn't supposed to be living in, and I had to correct it. Now, just to backtrack, when I was in high school, I was sort of like, I had like this sort of like punk rock snobbery that I refused to be friends with anybody in my school. I, had my friends that were a few years older than me that all lived in Center City and West Philly, and I didn't want anything to do with the people I went to school with. I thought I was too good for them. So anyway, through meditation and some other spiritual practices, I was able to somehow partially correct the timeline. And I had this weird experience where I woke up after a segment of missing time that lasted 2 whole days that I can't account for, and nobody around me can claim that I was missing for those 2 days. And when I woke up, I had all these contacts in my phone that were people that had gone to my high school that I was never friends with. And I'm looking on Facebook, and they're friends with me on Facebook. And I questioned a couple of them about it without sounding too crazy, but they started like telling me about stuff that we had done together that I had no recollection of. And I think what it is like, if you look at the way a freight train will pull into a rail yard and the locomotive pulls away, and by gravity all the freight cars go down and switch onto different tracks, and depending on their destination or what product they're carrying, and then when those tracks fill up, another train will come and pull take it to wherever it goes. And each of us can be several different box cars, tanker cars, whatever, and we have to find where we're supposed to go. And time, I don't think, is linear, and it's not even quite circular. It's more like a tetrahedron. It's so complex, and we all can do this through, like what you say, raising love vibration. That's a huge concept. Like sometimes, like I've seen your videos before where you're on the street talking to people, and sometimes I don't think you even realize how important it is what you're talking about. Like it's like you say, it's key, but it really is. It's like even more than key. It's like the epitome of the meaning of everything. You know, like if somebody were to ask God, you know, however you define that, like the big questions of life, that would be the answer to every single question. And that's really the solution. And I think the more we focus on that, we all end up on the right track in that rail yard. You know, because some of those tracks go down, you know, weed overgrown lines that don't even go anywhere. You know, and some of them end up in train stations full of people that are waiting for trains that will never come. And you need to get on the right track so that locomotive will come and take you to your destiny.
That's amazing. You know? That's amazing. Well said. And I have a question for you. And when we look at a lot of activism out there and a lot of information that's being pumped out to people who really, you know, want to get their feet wet and want to make a difference, it kind of seems like the message to me is, well, you know, if we want a violent revolution and we're gonna kill and we're gonna fight, and you know, it's being installed in a lot of people's subconscious that it has to be a violent uprising. And I think that when we look at, you know, the way the elites are playing their cards, they're pretty much, you know, if you look through like television or schooling, how like they teach you from an early age how to be a bully, and Dancing with the Stars says, well, you're too fat to dance, you're no good. You know, so exactly. So I think that a lot of people, rightfully so, have a right to be angry, but I think that because a lot of people that are pushing out the information, they're not giving that door to open and say, okay, well, it's good to be angry, but if you strategize in a non-compliance, when I say non-compliance, I mean just quit your job, don't pay taxes, and if thousands of people do this at once, the system will crash. I mean, they have to give in. But because of the information that's being given out now, it's like, rise up, rise up, rise. It's kind of like, you know, if we take that negative, aggressive energy, and like I said, a lot of us have the right to be angry, but they don't. A lot of them don't have that. You know, teaching of love, and hey, that can be key. That's the key to unlock the door to change, and that's the thing. I think that if a lot of people that you know, reach out to the millions and millions of viewers and thousands of people on social networks, if a lot of them would say, hey, look, you know, we have a right to be mad, but if we all come together in a non-compliant love vibration. I mean, if you come in my house and try to harm my kids or my family, of course I'm going to defend myself, but you know, as far as making change is concerned, I think that through positive energy that it can be done. What do you think about some of the people that pump out a lot of negative messages? Do you think that it's wrong?
There's a percentage of them that are just victims of themselves, and that can be corrected if, you know, they're just taken and in a loving and empathetic way and explain that, like, yeah, okay, if somebody does come into your house and is trying to hurt you and your family, you have a right to defend yourself by by whatever means necessary. But the other big problem is the notion that one of the key tactics of these
scumbags,
that are running the show is to infiltrate stuff. I mean, they love doing that, and it amazes me. I've noticed, like, in certain, like, online and in either forums or like on Facebook or in chat rooms, there are literally these people, or on YouTube, like in the comments section.
Right.
There's people that I look at and I think they aren't just commenting. These are people that are working a shift. They literally are online for 8 hours a day, every day, or 5-6 days a week, and it is their job to either debunk, insult, or rile up people. And it's funny because I was just listening to it was an episode of Coast to Coast where they were talking about how, what's his name?
George Norton?
No, not George Norton. It was the other guy that works in Las Vegas, George Knapp. But he was interviewing somebody about these debunkers and that debunk, UFOs or debunk the supernatural. And they said that there's a lot of evidence that these debunkers, like specifically Philip Klass and James Randi, who was a debunker on the Johnny Carson show years ago, these people were assets of the CIA. They were on, like, either the FBI or the CIA payroll. Now, why would the CIA or the FBI have the money to pay somebody to be a professional debunker? And it goes the same with these professional evangelistic atheists that I don't think they're atheists. I think they're Luciferians that want to destroy spirituality. They purposely go and they'll anything that's out of the realm of materialism, which I think, as far as I'm concerned, the physicists have, over the past 10 years, completely murdered and buried the materialistic view of reality. But they still are holding on to this thing that the only thing that exists is matter and energy, even though matter, they've proven only 4 to 6% of it even friggin' exists. They're professional people to kill spirituality. And there's, thousands probably, I would estimate, but maybe more, maybe less, that their job is all day long going online, being quote-unquote journalists to try to make anyone look stupid that, believes in spiritual things or paranormal things, because people need to be, as far as they're concerned, need to be herded into a materialistic viewpoint. So they live in the here and now completely, and get themselves worried about the clothes they're wearing and the music they're listening to. And if there's no spiritual principles, then you can just have sex with whoever you want, whenever you want to have it. If you want to hurt somebody or take advantage of somebody, you can do that. And there's the universe will turn a blind eye because it doesn't even have an eye. Like I said, the way to combat that is with the weapons they don't have, which is love, courage, truth, justice eventually.
So you think that this might be a spiritual war? Kind of like
I know it is. I can feel it. There's people that I've been, just like there's people I've been in a room with, and they just radiate warmth and love, and you just feel good being around them. And then there's people that are like these, almost like psychic vampires, and I sometimes I'll pass people on the street, and I get like that chill, like where your body just shakes for like 2 seconds, and I always look back at them, and I get this like sort of like feeling like sometimes it's like almost like that person made me feel filthy by walking past me. And there's a term that was coined by Dr. Jeffrey Grubb, dark ecstasy, and it's actually like a spiritual high that comes from pain, suffering, and it you know, it goes beyond just like being happy about watching your enemies, you know, like lose their job or get evicted or, you know, get hooked on drugs or something like that. It's literally like they love pain. They love the notion of, you know, and even to say it makes me sick, but, you know, to watch children suffer or to see groups of people suffer. And whenever there's a tragedy, they'll come to that area to feed off of the pain. And, you know, just like, you know, if your child looks you in the eyes and says, "Daddy, I love you," like that feeling you get when that happens, they get that by watching like violence and or creating chaos. You know, maybe it's they'll tell somebody like, "Oh, I saw your girlfriend talking to some guy," and then they'll go and tell the guy, you know, the girl, like, "Oh, you know, your boyfriend, I saw him doing this," or you know,
just to get her crying and get that negative reaction, so they can feed on it.
Yes. And that couple will be fighting, and the thing is the person could be miles away and have no way of knowing that the couple's in a fight, and that person, they're getting like a nutrition off of the fight they created that they're not even watching.
Right. So, and that's kind of like how with the chaos, what the government seems to be doing. If you look at a lot of like 9/11, I mean, a lot of people say it's an inside job, and there's, you know, actual evidence that it was a demolition job, and, you know, just seeing those towers fall and people holding each other and jumping, and it's kind of like a ejaculating, perverted, negative vibe that they feed off of.
Yes, and how we were bombarded with those horrific scenes for months and years, over and over and over again. And, you know, that really, like, that whole thing that happened, I mean, it's even been said, like, as one of the you know, evidences that it was an inside job, that the people that did it, they couldn't have possibly known the political ramifications of what they were doing, specifically targeting the World Trade Center in the way, and the Pentagon the way they did. But then there's also the spiritual ramifications of what they did. Right,
and I think that's... No, go ahead.
Yeah, and now we're living in the wake of that satanic tsunami.
And if we look at, I mean, we've already came to the agreement that this is a spiritual war. We've already came to the agreement that, you know, the powers that be are parasites who like to feed off of negative energy and suffering. And, you know, we look around now and we say to ourselves, all right, well, you know, they're stacking up on ammunition, and Homeland Security's wanting to take the guns, and you know, we're running out of food, and there's a lot of people on the planet, and, you know, the planet seems like it's cooling down, which means no crops and everything's poisoned, and they've got the guns, they're getting ready. So I think when we look at what's going on, I think that we have to realize, number one, there's no such thing as death, and that there is a spirit. This is only a spiritual game. So I think it really depends on how we play it. And a lot of people are going to be lost in this. A lot of people, when the shit hits the fan, so to say, you know, a lot of people are going to be in panic and fall into the web of chaos. And, you know, I guess the people that are spiritually on a higher vibration, like me and others, like yourself, you know, we're going to survive in a spiritual essence, and a lot of people aren't. It seems like that's the reality.
That's why, like, you know, I've had people say to me, like, oh, you know, but you need to get out of the city. Oh my God, you know, why aren't you like stocking up on water and food and cigarettes and that? You know what? I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about right now, what's happening today. What can I do today to make my side of the street clean? Because I'm not by nature a kind, loving person. I work, I fight for goodness in myself. Like, I am bent towards, like, resentment and fear and anger. And I work on myself every day. And it's a struggle every day. You know, when somebody's on the trolley clipping their fingernails, and it makes me want to go up to them and say, you disgusting slob, and punch them in the face. I'm not a good person by nature.
Right.
I have to really work at being kind and being good. And that's my personal struggle. And then there's my struggle that I owe a debt to humanity. And I feel indebted to humanity, and it's a debt that I'm grateful I have the opportunity to pay for. You know, I saw somebody post something on Facebook that said politicians are like sperm. Only 1 in a million ever ends up turning out to be an actual human being. And, you know, I am a human being, and I believe in humanity. I believe that we're destined to do great things. And even if I can just be a molecule in that immense greatness, you know, that's my goal. That's my career. You know, I'm not worried about getting a degree or, you know, making money or anything like that, because I know I'm the kind of person where if I had a job that paid, you know, $150,000 a year, I'd be a total scumbag. So my poverty is a gift.
Right.
It keeps me humble, and it keeps me focused on more important things than, you know, clocking in 9 to 5 and all that.
I think the beautiful thing that you said was how you openly say, I'm not perfect, and, you know, I have my own inner demons. And I think that, you know, when you see a lot of these people on these social networks and sometimes people on the street, they just, you know, it's like, oh, well, I don't have any inner demons. I'm just love. And I think that it's total BS. I think that, you know, it's okay to say, hey, look, you know, I've had a rough childhood, and hey, listen, you know, I have resentment because of this and that, but like you said, I have a debt to society, and that's kind of like my calling and my job to not only want to help, but to want to, you know, to go through the day-to-day struggle to better myself so I can better other people. So what do you see down the road, Joseph? What do you see happening down the road? With everything that we know?
I really feel optimistic. You know, it's funny how, like, over the past few years, I keep seeing every few months something like, oh, you know, it's going red. It's code red. You know, December 21st, 2012, you know, boop bop the bleep. And I don't know who's putting this stuff out on such a regular basis, but, like, we're constantly on the cusp of just, you know, total annihilation. And I mean, history shows us that's not necessarily how things work. Even after, like, collapses in government and collapses in the financial system, people still wake up the next day and, you know, eat breakfast, make love to their wife, and go to work or go to the park or whatever. But there is a very real battle out there against darkness, and one of my favorite sayings is, just a little light will dispel a whole lot of darkness. And I'm optimistic that there's a lot of really good stuff in our future, but it's just like, you know, whatever your goal is, if it was something like losing weight or, you know, quitting smoking or, you know, getting off drugs or whatever it is, to get to that point where you're free takes a lot of pain. And pain is the touchstone of spiritual growth. So, yeah, I'm optimistic, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's going to be really tough.
Right. And, you know, this is why I love to have activists come on and people who have a good sense of universalism come on and onto the show. And not only that, but just get out there and interview people. Joe, what are your closing words for people out there that are going to hear this, you know, on YouTube, on Facebook, anywhere, Twitter? What would your words be to them on a closing statement?
You know, focus on the positive. Realize that morals and values are real. There's not, you know, the moral relativism that we're fed by our government and our schools and our, you know, idiot neighbors. It's not real. Good and evil exist. The time for sitting on the fence and watching football is over. You have to pick a side now. That's clear. You just have to look out your window to know that. Pick goodness. Fight for goodness. You know, there's worse things than death, and slavery is one of them. There were a lot of people that, when forced into slavery, just outrightly refused to be a slave, and they chose death over slavery. And love yourself. Love yourself. Love the people around you. Love the people that are nasty to you. When you're in the store and you say hi to the cashier and they ignore you and they don't make eye contact with you and they're rude and they throw your change on the counter, you know, feel sympathy for them, that maybe something really bad happened to them, you know, and that whole love vibration, that's something that you have to do. It's not just something you think about. You have to actually project that, not just onto other individuals and yourself, but your city, your community, your country, the whole world, the whole universe. You know, and it's contagious. It will catch.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, man. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. And
absolutely, anytime.
And hold on, because I'm going to talk to you a little off air. All right. And everybody, this is Joseph Morlone.